It's cold down here. The notification chimed at 3:17 a.m., piercing through Marcus's restless sleep like a blade. He fumbled for his phone, squinting at the harsh blue light that illuminated his bedroom. The timestamp made his blood freeze, exactly 1 year to the minute since Jake's funeral. The message was from Jake's old number, "It's cold down here." Marcus sat bolt upright, his heart hammering against his ribs. He stared at the screen until his eyes watered, willing the words to rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Jake's phone had been destroyed in the crash. The carrier had disconnected the line months ago. This was impossible. He scrolled up through their old conversation thread, hundreds of messages ending abruptly with Jake's last text, *running late, but I'll be there. Can't wait to celebrate your promotion, bro, *. Jake never made it to the restaurant. A drunk driver ran a red light at the intersection 3 blocks away, crushing Jake's Honda Civic like an aluminum can. Marcus had waited 2 hours at their table, growing increasingly worried, until the police arrived to deliver the news that would split his life into before and after. Now, beneath that final message, a new one glowed, "It's cold down here." Marcus's thumb hovered over the keyboard. His rational mind screamed that this was a sick prank, a coincidence, a glitch in the system. But his heart recognized something in those 5 words, Jake's particular way of understating things, the same tone he'd used when he'd broken his arm in high school and texted Marcus, "Think I might need a doctor." "Who is this?" Marcus typed, then deleted it. He tried again, "This isn't funny, delete." Finally, with trembling fingers, he sent, "Jake." The response came immediately, "So cold, Marcus. Why didn't you come, The phone slipped from Marcus's hands, clattering onto the hardwood floor. He scrambled to retrieve it, his breathing shallow and rapid. "Why didn't you come?" The words echoed in his mind, dredging up the guilt he'd buried beneath a year of therapy and sleepless nights. Jake had been coming to celebrate Marcus's promotion, a celebration Marcus had almost cancelled because he was exhausted from a week of 18-hour days. If he had cancelled, Jake would still be alive. If he had left work earlier and picked Jake up himself. If he had chosen a different restaurant. If. The phone buzzed again, "I waited for you." Marcus's vision blurred with tears. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the empty room. "God, Jake, I'm so sorry." Another message, "Come see me." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus pulled his blanket tighter around his shoulders, but the cold came from within, settling deep in his bones. He knew he should put the phone down, call his therapist, take his anxiety medication. Instead, he found himself typing, "Where are you?" "You know where, Hillcrest Cemetery. Plot 247, beneath the oak tree Jake had loved to climb as a kid. Marcus had visited once, for the burial, and never returned. He couldn't bear to see his best friend's name carved into granite, couldn't accept the finality of earth piled over a wooden box. "I can't, Marcus replied. The phone screen flickered, the text conversation disappearing for a moment before returning. When it stabilized, a new message waited, "Please. It's so cold, Marcus closed his eyes, but he could still see the words burned against his eyelids. When he opened them again, his reflection stared back from the black phone screen, hollow-eyed and haunted, aged a decade in the past year. He was getting dressed before he'd made a conscious decision to go. The drive to Hillcrest took 23 minutes in the dead of night. Marcus parked outside the wrought iron gates, his headlights cutting through the darkness between weathered headstones. The cemetery had no night security, who would break into a graveyard, but the gates were locked. Marcus walked the perimeter until he found a section where the fence had sagged enough for him to climb over. His phone's flashlight beam danced across marble angels and granite crosses as he navigated the narrow paths. Plot 247 was in the older section, where the trees grew thick and the shadows seemed to swallow light. The oak tree Jake had loved was massive, its bare winter branches reaching toward the star-filled sky like desperate fingers. Jake's headstone was simple gray granite, Jacob Michael Chen, beloved son and friend, 1995-2024, fresh flowers lay at its base, his parents still visited regularly. Marcus knelt in the damp grass, his knees immediately soaking through his jeans. "I don't know if this is real," he said aloud, feeling foolish. "But if it's you, Jake, I need you to know how sorry I am. I should have been there. I should have protected you somehow." His phone buzzed. The screen showed a new message from Jake's number, but now the words made Marcus's stomach lurch. "Look closer." Marcus aimed his flashlight at the headstone, searching for something he'd missed. The beam revealed nothing unusual, just carved letters and numbers, the dates that bookend his friend's short life. He moved the light lower, to the base of the stone, then to the ground itself. The earth was wrong. The soil above Jake's grave showed signs of recent disturbance, not the settled, grass-covered mound he expected after a year, but loose dirt mixed with what looked like scratch marks. Deep gouges in the earth, as if something had been clawing upward from below. Marcus's phone buzzed again. "Help me." "This isn't happening," Marcus whispered, but even as he said it, he could see his breath misting in the suddenly frigid air. The temperature was dropping so fast that frost began forming on the grass around him. Another message, "Dig." "No." Marcus backed away from the grave, shaking his head. "No, no, no. You're dead, Jake. I watched them lower your casket. This isn't real." The phone screen flickered and went black. In the darkness, Marcus could hear something, a rhythmic tapping that seemed to come from underground. Tap tap tap. Pause. Tap tap tap. It was Morse code. Jake had learned it in Boy Scouts, had driven everyone crazy by tapping out messages during boring classes. 3 taps meant, S, 3 taps, pause, 3 taps, SOS. Marcus ran. He stumbled through the cemetery, crashing into headstones and low-hanging branches, his phone's flashlight beam wild and erratic. Behind him, the tapping grew louder, more insistent, but when he looked back, the beam revealed only empty darkness between the trees. He didn't stop running until he reached his car, fumbling with the keys as the tapping seemed to echo from every direction. The engine turned over on the 3rd try, and Marcus floored the accelerator, gravel spraying as he tore out of the cemetery parking lot. At home, he triple-checked the locks on his doors and windows, then sat in his kitchen with every light blazing. His phone remained dark and silent on the table before him. Maybe it was over. Maybe whatever had happened at the cemetery had satisfied the thing that wore Jake's voice. At 4:44 a.m., the phone buzzed. Marcus stared at it for a full minute before picking it up. The message was longer this time, *, "Why did you leave me there? I called for you, but you ran. Just like you ran that night, *. "I didn't run," Marcus said to the empty kitchen. "I waited. I waited for hours." The response came immediately, *, "You ran from the guilt. You ran from the funeral. You ran from my grave. Always running, Marcus. But you can't run from what you did, *. What I did? I didn't do anything. You were the one who was speeding, you were the one who..." Marcus stopped, horrified by his own words. Even in death, apparently, he was still blaming Jake for the accident. The guilt that had been eating him alive for a year wasn't just about not preventing Jake's death, it was about being angry at Jake for dying, for leaving him alone, for choosing to drive too fast on that rainy night. "There it is, *, came the next message. *, "The truth you've been hiding. You blame me, *. Marcus's hands shook as he typed, *, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I miss you so much, Jake. I just wish things had been different, *. Different how? Wish I had never been born. Wish you had never met me, *. No. I wish I had been a better friend. I wish I had told you how much you meant to me. I wish I had been there when you needed me, asterisk. The phone screen went black for several long minutes. When it lit up again, the message was different. Asterisk, come back to me, Marcus. Come back and we can be together, asterisk. Something in those words chilled Marcus more than the supernatural messages that had come before. There was a hunger in them, a need that felt wrong. Jake had never been possessive or demanding in life. He'd been generous, patient, always putting others first. This thing, whatever it was, didn't sound like his friend anymore. You're not Jake, asterisk, Marcus typed. I am everything Jake was and everything he became after you let him die, asterisk. Jake wouldn't want to hurt me, asterisk. Jake is cold and alone and hungry, Marcus. Jake has been waiting in the dark for a year, and now Jake wants company, asterisk. Marcus set the phone down and walked to his bedroom window. Outside, the first hints of dawn were creeping across the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gray and pink. In the growing light, the supernatural felt less immediate, more like the remnant of a nightmare. He decided to call Jake's parents. Mrs. Chen answered on the third ring, her voice thick with sleep. Marcus? Is everything okay? I'm sorry to wake you so early, he said. I had a strange night, and I need to ask you something about Jake's funeral. Of course, honey. What is it? The burial. You were there when they lowered the casket, right? Everything was normal. There was a long pause. Marcus, what's brought this on? Are you having nightmares again? Please, Mrs. Chen. Just tell me if everything was normal with the burial. Another pause, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice was careful, measured. There was some confusion that day. The funeral director said there had been an issue with the casket, something about the latch mechanism failing during transport. They assured us it had been repaired, but... Marcus's blood turned to ice. But what? But when they lowered it into the ground, we could hear something rattling inside. The funeral director said it was probably just the handles shifting, but it sounded almost like tapping. The phone slipped from Marcus's numb fingers, clattering to the floor. From the fallen device, he could hear Mrs. Chen's voice calling his name, but it sounded distant and unreal. Jake hadn't been dead when they buried him. Marcus's legs gave out, and he slumped against the wall. The truth crashed over him in waves. Jake had survived the crash, had been in a coma, had been mistakenly pronounced dead. He'd awakened in the darkness of his coffin, 6 feet underground, and had died slowly, horribly, clawing at the lid until his fingernails were gone, tapping out desperate SOS messages that no one could hear. The phone on the floor buzzed. Marcus could see the screen from where he sat, could read the message that appeared, now you know. With shaking hands, Marcus picked up the phone. How long? He typed. 3 days. 3 days I scratched and screamed and called your name. 3 days I waited for my best friend to save me, asterisk. Marcus was sobbing now, great heaving sobs that made it hard to breathe. Asterisk, I didn't know. Jake, I swear I didn't know, asterisk. But you could have known. If you had come to see me. If you had visited my grave even once in the past year. If you had been the friend you claimed to be, asterisk. What do you want from me, asterisk? The response came immediately, asterisk, come back to the cemetery. Come back and join me. It's not so cold when you're not alone, asterisk. Marcus understood now. The thing texting him wasn't just Jake's ghost, it was Jake's pain, his abandonment, his rage at dying alone and unheard. It was everything dark and desperate about his friend's final moments, given form and voice. I won't, asterisk, Marcus typed. I can't. Then I'll come to you, asterisk. The temperature in Marcus's apartment began to drop. Frost spread across the windows in intricate patterns, and his breath came out in visible puffs. From somewhere in the walls came the sound of tapping. Slow, deliberate, spelling out SOS over and over again. The tapping grew louder, moving through the apartment like something crawling through the ventilation system. Marcus grabbed his car keys and ran for the door, but the handle was so cold it burned his palm. The lock wouldn't turn. He was trapped. The tapping had reached the living room now, coming from inside the walls, the floor, the ceiling. It surrounded him, a percussion of desperation and rage. The lights flickered and went out, leaving Marcus in darkness broken only by the glow of his phone screen. A new message appeared, "I'm here." In the corner of the room, something moved. A shadow darker than the surrounding darkness, shaped like a man but wrong in all the details. It had Jake's height, Jake's build, but its edges seemed to blur and shift like smoke. When it spoke, the voice was Jake's voice filtered through soil and decay. "Marcus. You're not real," Marcus whispered, pressing himself against the door. "I'm as real as cold earth and broken fingernails. As real as 3 days of screaming into darkness. As real as the friend who never came." The shadow thing moved closer, and Marcus could smell it now, earth and mold and something sweetly rotten. "I waited for you, Marcus. In the dark, in the cold, I waited. And now it's your turn to wait. Jake, please. You were my best friend. You wouldn't hurt me. My best friend." The shadow laughed, a sound like wind through dead leaves. "My best friend let me die alone in a box. My best friend was too guilty and selfish to even visit my grave. My best friend cared more about his own pain than mine." Marcus felt tears freezing on his cheeks. "You're right. I failed you. I was a terrible friend. But this isn't what you would want, Jake. Not really. You were good. You were kind. I was. And look where it got me." The shadow reached out with hands that seemed to be made of darkness itself. Where they touched Marcus's arms, the cold was so intense it felt like burning. "Come with me, Marcus. Come back to the earth where we can be together forever. Where you can finally understand what it means to be abandoned." Marcus closed his eyes, and for a moment, he almost gave in. The guilt was so heavy, so complete, that oblivion seemed like mercy. But then he thought of Jake as he really was, not this twisted thing born from pain and abandonment, but the man who had tutored struggling students for free, who had volunteered at animal shelters, who had once driven 2 hours in a snowstorm to bring Marcus soup when he had the flu. "No," Marcus said, opening his eyes. "This isn't you, Jake. The real Jake would forgive me. The real Jake would want me to live, to be better, to honor his memory by helping others the way he did." The shadow thing hissed, its form wavering. "Pretty words. But I am what your guilt made me. I am what your abandonment created." "Then I'll carry that guilt," Marcus said, surprised by the steadiness in his own voice. "But I won't let it destroy me. And I won't let it destroy the memory of who you really were." He pulled out his phone and began typing, not to the thing in front of him, but to the real Jake's number, knowing it would go nowhere, knowing it was just words sent into the void, but needing to say them anyway. "Jake, I'm sorry I wasn't there when you died. I'm sorry I wasn't a better friend. I'm sorry I let my guilt keep me away from your grave, away from your parents, away from honoring your memory the way you deserved. I can't change what happened, but I can promise to do better. I can promise to live the kind of life you would have wanted me to live. I love you, brother. Rest in peace, asterisk." As he typed the final words, the shadow thing let out a wail that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The temperature began to rise, the frost on the windows melting and running down the glass like tears. The darkness in the corner wavered, became thinner, more transparent. "It's not enough," the shadow whispered, but its voice was fainter now, less substantial. "The cold, the loneliness." "I know," Marcus said softly. "And I'm sorry. But you have to let go, Jake. You have to let me let go." The shadow looked at him with eyes that might have been stars in a dark sky. For just a moment, Marcus saw something that looked like his real friend, not the thing born from pain and abandonment, but the man who had laughed at terrible movies and cried at dog videos and believed that people were fundamentally good. "Take care of my parents," the shadow said, and now it was Jake's voice, really Jake's voice, free from the weight of earth and rage. "Visit them sometimes. They miss having you around." "I will," Marcus promised. "I'll be better. I'll be the friend you deserved." The shadow smiled, a sad, grateful expression that made Marcus's heart break all over again. "I know you will. I always knew you would." And then it was gone, taking the cold and the tapping and the suffocating weight of guilt with it. Marcus stood alone in his apartment as the first rays of true sunlight streamed through the windows, warming his face and hands. His phone buzzed one last time. The final message was simple: "Thank you." Marcus walked to his kitchen window and watched the sun rise over the city where he and Jake had grown up, had become men, had shared dreams and fears and terrible jokes. There would be other days, other sunrises, and he would have to learn how to see them without his best friend. But he would see them. He would live. And later that morning, he would drive to Hillcrest Cemetery and finally visit plot 247. He would bring fresh flowers and sit by the oak tree and tell Jake about his life, his struggles, his small victories. He would visit Jake's parents and help them tend the garden Jake had started in their backyard. He would live the kind of life that honored his friend's memory instead of being consumed by the guilt of his loss. The dead, Marcus had learned, could only haunt you if you let them. And sometimes, the most loving thing you could do for someone was to let them go. But first, he would make coffee and watch the sunrise and be grateful for the warmth of the living world, where breath misted in winter air not from supernatural cold, but from the simple miracle of being alive. Still online. Maya first noticed it 3 weeks after the funeral. She'd been avoiding social media, couldn't bear to see the memorial posts and condolence messages flooding her timeline, but work required her to check the company's Slack channel. That's when she saw it, a tiny green dot next to Connor's profile picture. Active now. Her breath caught in her throat. Connor had been dead for 21 days. She'd watched his casket disappear into the ground, had thrown dirt onto polished wood while his mother sobbed beside her. Yet there he was, showing as online, as if he might send her a sarcastic comment about their boss's latest impossible deadline at any moment. Maya stared at the screen until her eyes watered. It had to be a glitch, some algorithmic hiccup that hadn't caught up with reality. Social media platforms were notorious for their morbid failures to recognize death, continuing to send birthday reminders for people who would never age again. She switched to Discord. Connor's status showed as away with a custom message, in a meeting that never ends. Her hands trembled as she opened Instagram. Last seen 2 minutes ago. WhatsApp, online. Facebook Messenger, active 1 minute ago. Every platform, every app, every digital space where Connor existed showed him as present, alive, somewhere in the ether of the internet. Maya felt reality tilt sideways, as if she might slide off the edge of the world. She called their mutual friend David, her voice cracking as she tried to explain what she was seeing. "You need to look at Connor's profiles," she said. "Tell me what you see." "Maya, what are you talking about?" Connor's accounts were deactivated last week. His family asked the platforms to memorialize them. David's voice was gentle but concerned. "Are you okay? Maybe you should talk to someone." Maya hung up and refreshed her browser. Still online. Still active. Still impossible. That night, she sat in her apartment with every device she owned spread across her coffee table, laptop, tablet, phone, even her old iPad. On every screen, Connor existed in a state of digital limbo, perpetually present yet permanently absent. The green dots mocked her, tiny beacons of impossibility that hurt to look at but impossible to ignore. At 11:47 p.m., she opened WhatsApp and stared at Connor's name for 10 minutes before typing, I can see you're online. The message showed as delivered immediately. Then, the typing indicator appeared, 3 dots that pulsed like a heartbeat. Maya. Holy shit, Maya, is that you? Asterisk. The phone slipped from her hands, clattering onto the hardwood floor. She stared at it for a full minute before picking it up with shaking fingers. The message was real, sitting in their chat thread like a digital impossibility. This isn't possible, asterisk, she typed back. I know. I've been trying to figure it out for weeks. Where am I, Maya? What happened to me, asterisk. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. Asterisk, you died, Connor. You had an aneurysm. You died 3 weeks ago, asterisk. That can't be right. I'm here. I'm talking to you. I'm in this place, it looks like our office, but wrong. The walls don't end. The fluorescent lights flicker but never go out. There are other people here, but when I talk to them, they don't seem to know they're dead, asterisk. Maya stood up abruptly, pacing her living room while staring at the screen. This was insane. She was having a breakdown, hallucinating messages from her dead friend because she couldn't accept his loss. But the words felt so much like Connor, his confusion, his analytical approach to even the most impossible situations. Prove it's you, asterisk, she typed. Remember senior year, when you had that panic attack during finals? You called me at 3 a.m. crying because you were convinced you were going to fail organic chemistry and your parents would disown you. I came over with ice cream and we watched terrible Netflix movies until you fell asleep on my couch. You never told anyone about that night, asterisk. Maya's vision blurred with tears. Only Connor knew about that night, about how fragile she'd been beneath her perfectionist exterior. She sank back onto her couch, the weight of impossibility settling over her like a shroud. It's really you, asterisk, she typed. I think so. But Maya, something's wrong here. This place, it's like a waiting room that goes on forever. Everyone here thinks they're just temporarily stuck, that they'll get back to their real lives soon. But I've been watching, and some of these people. I think they've been here for decades, asterisk. Where is here, asterisk. The typing indicator appeared and disappeared several times before Connor's response came through, asterisk, I don't know. But I've been trying to map it. The architecture doesn't make sense, corridors that loop back on themselves, doors that open onto the same room you just left. But I found something weird. Coordinates, asterisk. Coordinates, asterisk. They're written on a wall in what looks like dried blood. I've seen them in 3 different places now, always the same numbers, 41.8783 degrees north, minus 87.6298 degrees west. But when I try to remember where I've seen them before, because they feel familiar, my head starts to hurt and the memory slips away, asterisk. Maya immediately opened Google Maps and entered the coordinates. The pin dropped on an empty stretch of Lake Michigan, far from shore, in water too deep for any structure. She tried several other mapping services, all showed the same thing. Open water. The coordinates don't exist, asterisk, she typed. They're in the middle of Lake Michigan. That's impossible. I'm looking at them right now, carved into concrete, asterisk. Maya screenshot the conversation and reverse searched the coordinates online. Nothing. No references to those exact numbers anywhere on the internet, which was almost impossible in an age where every location on Earth had been catalogued, photographed, and geotagged. She tried calling Connor's phone. It went straight to voicemail, his voice, bright and familiar, asking her to leave a message. But according to her phone records, the call had never connected. The number showed as inactive, disconnected weeks ago. Connor, I tried calling you. Your number doesn't work, asterisk. I don't have a phone here. I'm typing on what looks like one of our work computers, but the screen is cracked and some of the letters stick. How are you receiving these messages, asterisk? Maya looked at her phone screen, at the conversation that shouldn't exist with a person who couldn't be typing. I don't know. Maya, I need you to do something for me. I need you to find out about those coordinates. There has to be a reason they feel familiar. Maybe they're connected to how I got here, or how to get out, asterisk. This is insane, Connor. You're dead. I watched them bury you, asterisk. Then explain how we're talking. Explain how I know things I shouldn't know if I'm just a hallucination or a chatbot or whatever your rational mind is trying to make me into, asterisk. Maya had no answer. The conversation violated every law of physics, every understanding of death and consciousness she'd ever held. But Connor's digital presence felt more real than anything in her physical world. Tell me about the other people there, asterisk, she typed. There's a woman named Helen who thinks it's 1987. She keeps trying to use a payphone that doesn't work. There's a teenage boy who's convinced his parents are coming to pick him up from what he thinks is detention. An old man who insists he's waiting for surgery. They all have this look in their eyes, like they're seeing something just slightly different from what's actually there, asterisk. How long have they been there, asterisk? I can't tell. Time moves weird here. Sometimes I feel like I've been typing to you for hours, but when I look up, the clock on the wall hasn't moved. Other times, I'll think I've only been here a few minutes, but my fingernails have grown longer and I'm hungry in a way I never was when I was alive, asterisk. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature in her apartment. Asterisk, Connor, what if you're not trapped somewhere else? What if you're still here, somehow? Still connected to our world but in a way you can't perceive, asterisk. What do you mean, asterisk? What if those coordinates aren't where you are, but where you need to go, asterisk? There was a long pause before Connor's response came through, asterisk, that doesn't make sense. How could I go somewhere when I don't have a body, asterisk? I don't know. But maybe I could go for you, asterisk. Maya, no. Don't. Something about this feels dangerous. The more I try to understand where I am, the more the other people here seem to fade. Like asking questions makes them less real, asterisk. But Maya was already grabbing her car keys. Lake Michigan was a 2-hour drive from her apartment in Chicago. She could be at the coordinates, or as close as she could get to them, by dawn. I have to try, Connor. I can't leave you trapped, asterisk. Maya, wait, asterisk. But she was already out the door, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline to the impossible. The drive through the empty pre-dawn streets felt surreal, as if she were moving through a dream. She kept glancing at her phone, expecting Connor's messages to disappear, expecting to wake up and find herself grieving a friend who was definitively, unquestionably dead. But the messages remained, and Connor kept typing, describing his growing unease as the other people in his strange waiting room began to notice him noticing them. They're looking at me differently now, asterisk, he wrote as Maya merged onto I-94. Like they can tell I don't belong here the same way they do. What does that mean, asterisk? I think I'm starting to remember things. About the day I died. I was at work, staying late to finish the Morrison account. My head started hurting, and I went to the bathroom to splash water on my face. But that's where it gets weird. I remember looking in the mirror and seeing someone else's reflection, asterisk. Maya's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Whose reflection? I don't know. Someone I'd never seen before, but who seemed to know me. He was mouthing something, but I couldn't hear him through the glass. Then everything went black, asterisk. Connor, that doesn't make sense. You died of an aneurysm. You were found at your desk, asterisk. That's what they told you. But I remember the bathroom, the mirror, the other face. And now that I'm thinking about it, I remember walking, not here, to this place, but somewhere else. Somewhere cold and wet, asterisk. Maya was approaching the shoreline now, the dark expanse of Lake Michigan stretching to the horizon. She pulled into a lakefront parking lot and checked her GPS. The coordinates Connor had given her were about 3 miles offshore, in water deep enough to swallow buildings. "I'm at the lake," she typed. "The coordinates point to open water." Open water? Maya, I think I remember water. Cold water, and darkness, and something pulling me down, Maya stared at her phone screen, at words that rearranged everything she thought she knew about Connor's death. "Connor, where was your body found?" "My body? What do you mean?" "I'm here, I'm talking to you, Your physical body. Where did they find it, There was a long pause. When Connor's response came, it was different, fragmented, as if he were typing while distracted or confused. "I don't, body, found at desk, you said. But I remember water. So much water, Maya's heart was racing now. She opened her laptop and began searching through news archives, looking for anything about Connor's death that hadn't been in the obituary or the memorial service. Most sources gave the same basic information: software engineer, found at his desk, apparent aneurysm, survived by parents and sister. But buried in a police blotter from 3 weeks ago, she found a different story: body recovered from Lake Michigan identified as Connor Walsh, 27, of Chicago. Walsh appeared to have drowned after falling from the Belmont Harbor Pier. Time of death estimated between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. Investigation ongoing. Maya stared at the screen until the words blurred together. 2 different official stories about Connor's death, one saying he died at his desk, another saying he drowned in the lake. But which was real? "Connor, she typed with shaking fingers, did you die at work or did you drown?" Both. Neither. Maya, something's happening here. The walls are starting to dissolve. I can see through them to, somewhere else. Somewhere dark and cold, Maya looked out at the lake, at the black water stretching to the horizon. 3 miles offshore, at coordinates that didn't officially exist, something waited in the depths. "I'm coming to find you," she typed. "No, Maya. Don't. I'm starting to understand now. This place, it's not where I am. It's where I think I am. But my body is somewhere else, Maya was already running toward the water, her phone still in her hand, Connor's messages continuing to arrive even as her feet hit the freezing surf. "The coordinates, Connor wrote. They're not a place. They're a signal. A beacon. I've been broadcasting my location, but not from where I think I am. Maya, I'm in the water. I've been in the water this whole time, Maya was waist deep now, the shock of the cold lake making her gasp. But she kept walking, driven by something beyond logic or self-preservation. "The other people here, Connor continued, they're not in the same place I am. They're in their own versions of this limbo, all of us broadcasting to anyone who might still be listening. But Maya, you have to understand, if you come to where I really am, you might not be able to leave, But Maya was already swimming, her phone held above her head, following the GPS coordinates toward the impossible location where her friend waited in digital limbo and physical death. The water was so cold it felt like knives against her skin, but Connor's messages kept coming, guiding her forward. "I can see you, Maya. Not here in this office place, but there in the real world. You're swimming toward me. But I'm so deep, and it's so dark, I'm coming, Maya typed, her fingers numb and clumsy on the screen. "Hold on. Maya, listen to me. The water here, in this place I think I'm in, it's starting to seep through the walls. The other dead people are beginning to remember where they really are. And they're all looking at me like it's my fault, like bringing you here has reminded them of what they've lost, Maya was almost at the coordinates now, treading water in the middle of Lake Michigan as dawn broke over the horizon. Her phone showed she was directly above the spot Connor had given her, but there was nothing here, just dark water and the distant sound of morning traffic from the shore. I'm here, asterisk she typed. Asterisk there's nothing here, Connor. Just water, asterisk. Look down, asterisk. Maya took a deep breath and dove, opening her eyes in the murky water. At first, there was only darkness and the burning sensation of lake water against her corneas. But as her eyes adjusted, she began to make out shapes in the depths below, not the bottom of the lake, which should have been invisible at this depth, but structures. Buildings. Streets. It was Chicago, but wrong, a sunken mirror image of the city she knew, complete with office buildings and traffic lights and the ghostly forms of people moving through underwater streets as if they were filled with air instead of water. Maya's lungs burned, but she forced herself to swim deeper, toward the building that looked like Connor's office. Through the windows, she could see him, sitting at a desk, typing on a computer, surrounded by other people who moved with the slow, dreamlike motions of the drowned. He looked up and saw her, his eyes widening with recognition and terror. Through the water, she could see him mouth the words, "Go back." But Maya was already drowning, the cold water filling her lungs as she tried to breathe. The last thing she saw before consciousness faded was Connor standing up from his desk, walking toward the window, his hand pressed against the glass as if he could somehow reach through and save her. When Maya woke up, she was in a hospital bed with tubes down her throat and machines beeping around her. The doctors said she'd been found floating in Lake Michigan, hypothermic and nearly drowned, but alive. They said she was lucky. A few more minutes and she would have joined the dozens of bodies that were never recovered from the lake's depths. But Maya knew better. She knew that somewhere beneath the surface, in a Chicago that existed only for the dead, Connor was still typing messages that no one would ever receive. Still showing as online in a place where being online was the only way to be anywhere at all. Her phone had been destroyed by the water, but when she got home, she checked her laptop. Connor's status still showed as active, but now there was a new custom message, "Maya's here now too, but she's in the shallow water. Don't let her sink any deeper." Maya stared at the screen and realized that reality hadn't fallen apart around her, it had simply revealed that there was more to it than she'd ever imagined. Connor wasn't trapped between life and death. He was trapped between versions of death, trying to navigate a digital afterlife that mirrored the physical world in ways that made perfect sense only to the dead. She opened WhatsApp and began typing, "Asterisk I saw you. I saw where you really are, asterisk." The response came immediately, "Asterisk I know. But Maya, you can't come back here. Promise me you won't try to come back, asterisk." Maya looked out her apartment window at the city where she lived, at the solid, real world of the living. But now she knew that beneath the surface, literally and figuratively, another version existed, where the dead went on living in digital limbo, sending messages to anyone who might still be listening. "I promise," asterisk she typed, knowing it was a lie. Because somewhere in the depths of Lake Michigan, in an office building that existed only for the drowned, Connor was still working late, still trying to finish projects that would never be completed, still showing as online in a place where online was the only way to be alive. And Maya would find a way back to him, even if it meant joining the ranks of the digitally dead, forever active, forever online, forever trapped in the space between connection and oblivion.